Chapter 2. Ruby Jones had no idea how old she is, or rather, she knows her age solely in relation to calendars and dates. The number itself remains foreign. This tally of her years on the page, as if the age she had landed at is an irrefutable place, a landmark plotted on a map. In other words, Ruby Jones does not feel 36 years old. This age, she notes down on forms, the number of candles on her cake consistently confuses her, so much so she has been known to experience a jolt of surprise upon discovering this famous woman, or that someone whose life she has observed from afar is in fact much younger than she is. She could swear these women, with their multiple careers, with their multiple marriages and multiple babies, are her contemporaries, maybe even older, with all that life crammed in. The truth of it is this: Ruby is approximately 3 years past pretty. Though camera filters are designed to hide the facts of the matter these days, it is reality to see she sees in the mirror every morning. The slackening jaw, the fold down corners of her mouth, the stomach rounded and hips flesh. She has not had the opportunity to age with someone, has only herself to wake up to each morning, and this is what she sees: a woman well past pretty, still sexy, maybe even beautiful at times, but there is little youth to be found in her features now. She can no longer look younger without artifice, and this she cannot deny. How to be 36 then? How to understand in her bones what this means, when it is nothing like they told her it would be. They, her mother, Woman's Magazine, the authors who wrote her favourite books growing up. People who should have known better. All Ruby knows for sure is that she is suddenly older than she understands herself to be, which is how it comes to pass that in the middle of a makeshift dance floor in Apollo Bay, 3 hours drive from Melbourne and half a world away from where she wants to be, 80s songs shrieking from cheap speakers in the corner, Ruby Jones makes the decision to throw those 36 years she has accumulated up in the air, to close her eyes and see where they scatter. She won't fully understand the gesture as it happens. Misremembered lyrics bellowed in her ears, friends stumbling into each other, pulling her into their circle. She's drunk, they are drunk. Sally, the bride, will end up throwing up on the beach as midnight approaches, and Ruby will hold back her hair, soothe her, and tell her what a magical day it was. I wish you had someone who loved you too, Sally will mumble when she's done, mascara tracking down her face. You're such a great girl, our precious Ruby. This sentence, this wedding, this late summer night of clicking glasses and shoeless dancing in a misty rain. It has all become too much for precious Ruby, or too little, she will decide when she is thinking more clearly. Her friends in the expensive outfit drinking their fancy wine. Pills popped serendipitously between the speeches and the band. Sally, drunk, crying, wearing a dress she dyed herself into all summer, marrying the great guy she met on Tinder barely a year ago. The right swipe, they called it in their vows, and for the life of her, Ruby couldn't remember if left or right was the way to say yes. Later at the beach house she and her friends have rented for the weekend, Ruby takes a pillow and blanket and quietly pads down to the downstairs balcony. It is 3 a.m. and everyone else has passed out in their shared beds, couple curled into each other or snoring obliviously against each other's backs. Ruby is, as usual, the only single person in the group, though she doesn't exactly consider herself single, not privately at least. There should be a better word to describe the state she found herself in. Alone. That would do it, she thinks, folding herself down into a damp wicker sofa. Someone has removed the spongy seat cushions. Ruby can see them stacked under the lip of the second floor balcony above her, but she does not have the energy to drag the cushions over it. It has started to rain in earnest now, and she is glad for the discomfort, for the wet on her face, and the unyielding sofa base pressed into her hip. Back in her room, the world has started to spin. Now she can see the black of this ocean, hear the inky water of the bay sucking against the sand. The sound seems as if it is coming from inside her. It's as if she is the one cresting and falling, and it takes a moment for Ruby to realize she is crying out here on the balcony, alone with the rain and the waves and the starless sky. Soon she is crying as hard as the weather, the accumulation of the past few years rising up out of her. This is not where she intended to be. Life, she understands, in this moment has stopped happening to her. She has stood in the middle of too many summers and winters, too many dance floors, and other people's parties, and simply woken up the next day older than before. For so long, nothing has changed. She has been on pause, while the man she loves goes about making his life, offering the tiniest of space for her to fit into, asking her to make herself small so she can her right, keep her right there, here, alone here. She doesn't want to be here anymore. The plan is not entirely clear as dawn approaches. Waves and rains and tears saturate everything around her. Ruby won't even really understand. Some days later, she scraps together her life savings, books a one-way ticket from Melbourne's Tullamarine Airport to JFK. Just what she was, just what she was doing, or why. She only knows that she cannot stay here any longer. That she needs desperately for anything to happen, to shake her out of her current state. And New York seems as a place as any for reinvention. In this way, our words are spinning closer every second. I have an image of her on the plane coming closer. The way she keeps reaching back towards Australia, folding time in on itself, so that Ruby is both 35,000 feet above her old life and stuck smack in the middle of it. I see her memories playing like an old mixtape, a best of compilation she has heard many times, but up there in the air, even the smallest moments seem tinged with tragedy. The way he looked at her when the last time and now she was pushing her forefinger hard against the small aeroplane window, blinking back tears. She watched her now turn white. Tiny perfect icicles forming on the other side of the thick glass. Around her, people have already reclined in their seats and started to snore. Now I know that Ruby is wide awake for the entire flight, just like I am wide awake the whole bus journey from Wisconsin. The whole same day we make our way to New York City, and just like me, Ruby Jones cannot help but spend the journey returning over and over to the lover she left behind. The proof of him, for me, is a stolen camera. For her, is the last message he sent right before she boarded the plane. I missed you. Past tense. I missed you. As if there are already years, not hours, between them. We arrived within minutes of each other. Where to, lady? The cab driver at the bustling JFK taxi rank speaks louder. This second time, half shouts at Ruby, and she blinks away the vastness of his question. The heart stopping in open space of it. He just wants an address. She has an address. She'd give him an address. If a sleep-deprived mind would just remember the details. Ruby reads the street name and building number for her from her phone, offers it more like a question. The driver huffs his acknowledgement and pulls out into this snaking line of traffic exiting the airport. It's getting dark. There is a grey tinge to the air. Something ghastly over her eyes. She tries to take off the lethargy of more than 30 hours of travel, tries to find some small, preserved part of herself that is excited to be here. She felt it briefly when she landed at LAX, a little arms out wide moment at all the freedom ahead of her. But that was hours ago. Hours of transit and bad coffee before another flight jolted her 3 hours ahead, so that she missed the sun twice over and had no idea what time it's really meant to be. As Ruby looked out the cab window at her new surroundings blurring by, she thinks maybe that first view of New York's famous skyline will cheer her up. An iconic bridge she will recognize, or one of those familiar buildings lit like a Christmas tree. For now, it's grey plastic bags floating like floated birds in the trees, and a freeway knocking up against the sloppy yards of the slate house. If she can keep her eyes open, just hold on. She knows these houses and church billboards and chain link fences will soon give way to shimmering water, to neon lights, and those famous metal buildings narrow as fingers beckoning. And with this last thought, Ruby acknowledges she is delirious. Seeing bloated birds and beckoning fingers, she must be dreaming more than awake right now. I'm stepping over cracks, shimming around people, waving at my street signs and statues as she presses her forehead against the glass of the passenger side window, watching for those beckoning fingers. At what point in this journey do our paths begin to cross? Struggling to keep her eyes open, Ruby wheels the driver to go faster. She wonders if he knows what an important role he is playing in her life right now, delivering her to a new world, a beginning of things like this. As the driver talks to someone on his mobile phone, his voice so low as to be indecipherable. She acknowledges this man could not care less about her, or the way her heart has seemingly moved on up into her throat. It is clearly nothing new for him, his transporting of another lost, hopeful soul to whatever waits them in New York City. She watches his hand slide across the steering wheel, each turn like a clock counting down, and understands if it is of no consequence to a stranger that she has come here with no plan, no calendar of events. He just wants to get her to her destination, drop her off, and get back to whoever he's talking to, maybe show up at someone's door himself. Ruby is a task to complete, irrelevant to him and to New York. Then that neon glow outside her window, getting brighter. She suddenly feels like laughing. I could, she muses, change my name, make up a life. That's how anonymous I am right now. And then here. What? The car stops suddenly, and the cab driver half turns towards Ruby. You say here. He points to a 5-story apartment building on his right. Scaffolding 1 floor high runs alongside the facade, and a series of wrought iron fire escapes snake up to the roof, giving off the impression of a building under perpetual construction. Ruby sees that the numbers above the wide front door match those she read out to the driver back at JFK. Scrambling for a wallet, Ruby overtips for the ride, and the driver finally looks at her now shakes his head slightly before he pops his trunk and hoists her suitcase onto the street. As Ruby watches him speed away, she fights the urge to wave him back to the curb and asks to be returned to the airport. Instead, as the yellow cab disappears from sight, she struggles her suitcase up the concrete steps that lead to her new home. Before using her elbow to hit a buzzer that says "press here," she hears the echo of her arrival on the other side as she waits, trembling for the door in front of her to open. Mine opens with a knock. As Ruby Jones was delivered to her new front doors, I was following the blue dots of mine. Went all the way to the edge of the Central Park, then veering around it, just like the map told me to, keeping the Hudson River on my left. There were soon more apartments, then stores and hotels, and bags of household rubbish began to appear on the curb. Rows of thin, leafless trees started to grow up out of the pavement. Shin-high fences made of iron, turning each one into tiny, walled-off gardens, and it was clear, strange as everything seemed to me, that I had reached the streets where people live. The frantic pace of Midtown seemed a world away up here on the Upper West Side. The night sky pressed down on my shoulders, the residential streets all but empty. I wasn't worried though. You could still feel the presence of people on my nearby street, since all the living going on around me, other than a small involuntary jump. When a man smoking in a doorway whistled at me, I felt oddly calm as I approached Noel's apartment building. Still, my heart is still in my throat when I knock, as if the gesture is pulling all my courage out of me. I'm sweating slightly. After being buzzed in from the street, a set of narrow stairs climb. The Letitia pressed against me. Rows of doors remain closed to me, and then the one I have been looking for is right there in front of me. Own bed, shared bathroom, $300 per week, all included. Yes, I'll be paying cash. No, I'm not allergic to dogs. Here is the full address. If you're taking the train, the closest stop is 96th and Broadway. I'll be coming by bus. I should arrive by 9, as you will. As you will. A strange sign off, I thought at the time, but I appreciate this Noel's efficiency throughout the process. Deal done inside a few text messages. Hardly any question asked, no unnecessary niceties or chit-chat. I don't even know what his voice sounds like. I realize now as my knock echoes on the wood between us. The door to Noel's apartment creaks open and I see one blue eye first, then the peak of a dark blue cap, a polished black shoe, and then something cold and wet brushes against my hand. Before I have time to pull back, a large brown dog pushes through the half-open door and lunges at me. Franklin! Noah appears in flashes between paws and chocolate fur, pulling at the dog's collar, and the three of us stumbled through the door together. A laugh bubbled up front of me from a source I never knew existed. It had an immediate effect, like cool water on a hot day. Any tension I felt slackened, like the strap of my bag as I let it fall on the floor. For a second, Noah and the dog disappears, and it's just me standing in the most beautiful room I have ever seen. The polished wood under my feet gleams, and tall white windows above thick cushioned seats give way to a wall of books and couches big enough to lie flat on. I can see small, brightly coloured toys, bones, and rubber chickens and tennis balls all scattered across the floor, and my mouth drops open. A shiny Black piano sits on the other side of the room. Above the piano is a huge glittering chandelier, something I have never ever seen in real life. Each piece of dangling crystal is so delicate, so perfectly formed, I think immediately of raindrops or tears. A strange thought comes to mind, lands on my shoulder like a feather. How much sorrow has this room seen? And now I'm aware of Noah holding the collar of the dog, both of them watching me. With my eyes and mouth wide open like a fish in the sand, I know that I had just given myself away. I might as well have pulled out the $600 I have in my purse and admitted that this is all I have in the world. I'm not. And this must be perfectly obvious even to the big old dog, someone who is accustomed to nice things. I turn to look, really look at the man who lives here, the owner of the piano and the chandelier and the books and the dogs. He is staring just as hard back at me, a half smile pulled at the left corner of his mouth. I see now that he's old, like grandpa old, maybe 65 or 70 and shorter than me just. He's wearing one of those fancy polo sweaters, the ones where you can see a neat shirt collar poking out from underneath, and it looks like he has no hair left under his Yankee cap, turf, soft eyebrow, pale blue eyes, then that half smile of his and his long, fine fingers reaching for mine. Hello, he says. Alice Lee, it's nice to meet you. Franklin. Noah gestures to his big brown dog now straining towards me. Obviously concurs. Later, when I look back at all the beginnings that turned me inch by inch towards the river, I'll see that this was the gentleness of them, shaking the soft, warm hand of an old man, and then a tour of his apartment with the large brown dog leading the way. Fresh towels on the dresser in the bedroom and a closet of empty hangers. Should you wish to hang out your things? The offer of a late night coffee, yes please, and a shaking of hands. No, don't you worry about it now, when I have to pay upfront for my week, Mom stay. Plenty of time for that, Alice. Noel says this over his shoulder as he leaves to make me that coffee, and I sit down hard on the edge of my new bed. Franklin at my feet, 7 nights, half my money gone, yet that same laugh bubbles up out of me again. This the one that feels like cool water on a hot day. You're going to be all right, Alice Lee. I say out loud to the towels and the hangers and the chocolate-coloured dog, and it's nice in this moment to believe it. Ruby Jones is not all right. For a start, her body and her clocks are say different things. She has been in New York City a few hours, but she feels so disorientated. It could be days or mere minutes. When she opened the door to her studio apartment, she wanted nothing more than to crawl straight under the covers of the wide, low bed, which sat barely astride from the doorframe. But it was still early, so she put on a thick coat and reached one block over to Broadway, hoping to stretch out her aching legs. Exhausted to have travelled so far, Ruby struggled to see the endless scaffolding and stores and sidewalk cracks, the people walking too fast, talking too loud, as anything other than props, extras on a movie set. Caught somewhere between reality and delirium, she wandered up and down the street, aimless and cold, before buying a slice of cheese, pizza for $1.27 and a $59 bottle of Grey Goose to wash it down. Taking this first New York supper back to her room, she was soon sitting cross-legged in the middle of that low bed, licking grease from her fingers and drinking vodka straight from the bottle. Catching sight of herself on the floor-length mirror opposite the bed, Ruby could not help but laugh a little. Her hand pressed up against her mouth to catch the sound. The woman in that mirror had hair almost as greasy as the pizza slice, ruby red cheeks, lips that were starting to chafe. What an ignoble start to her venture, she acknowledged, pulled at the loose purple-black skin, concertinated under her eyes, taking full stock of her tightness before returning the vodka bottle to her mouth. This is so exciting, Ruby. What an awesome thing to do. Oh my God, you're so brave. After she announced her plan to move to New York for 6 months, it seemed everyone spoke to her in exclamation. There was something about what she was doing, quitting her day job, giving away most of her furniture and clothes, compacting her life into a true metallic blue suitcase. That seemed to inspire people. Her news triggered faraway looks and hushed confessions everywhere she went. I always wanted to. I wish I could have. Maybe one day I'll. For a while, that Ruby was privy to the whole world of secrets, desires shared without invite by both strangers and friends. Now, vodka at her lips, the room rocking slightly. She finds it odd to think of all those people living ahead of her, somewhere in the tomorrow of Melbourne. From her new times now, she will perpetually live behind them, chasing hours long tickled over in Australia, even though people back home assume she is the one out in front. taking herself upon a sabbatical to live in New York City just because she can. She might as well have told people she was heading to the moon. Am I brave or just crazy? She asked the vodka bottle and the room and her hazy reflection, none of which offered a satisfactory answer before she capsized into sleep. At now it's 2 a.m. this next first morning in New York, and she's wide awake. The bed sheets are soaked through with sweat, and when Ruby stands up to go to the bathroom, she feels like she's pitching forward as if her body wants to be somewhere else, when she's already as somewhere else as she's ever been here in this city of what is it now, 8 million? 9? No matter, given she knows exactly 2 people out of that number. A couple of former colleagues who have made it clear they would love to catch up. Sometime soon, Ruby, when you're settled in. Well, she thinks, here I am, all settled in, and not feeling very brave at all. What would those friends and strangers back in Melbourne think of this admission? Returning from the bathroom, still unsteady, Ruby sits down on the edge of her bed just as the siren starts up outside her window. It is familiar sound in the dark, yet somehow different to the ambulance call she's used to hearing back home. More melancholy, perhaps. While she moves to the window now, peers down into the empty street. This New York siren seems resigned somehow, weary from overuse, as if the worst tragedies have already happened. It is another delirium-induced musing. This prescription of poetry to an ordinary thing, but something else too. The beginning of a new kind of loneliness, where Ruby will soon find herself talking to objects as if they were people, holding conversation with a hairbrush and her vodka bottles, and the pillows on her head, just to say anything at all in these first early hours, as it is as if Ruby senses this impending isolation, the days ahead where she will barely speak to anyone unless she's reciting her breakfast order or saying thank you to strangers for holding the door, turning from the window this first landing morning, closing the blinds against the piles of black rubbish bags in jungle gym scaffolds and scattering of parked cars on the street below. Ruby can see that sleep is no longer an option. Instead, she carefully unpacks her suitcase, hangs up her dresses and jackets, lays out her shoes. When this task is done, empty suitcase stored by the door, she compiles a list of things that might make this room, with its clean linen and private bathroom, feel more like home. A glass full of vodka, a candle, dishes for the microwave in the corner, and a vase for fresh flowers, little anklets, trinkets to remind her that she lives here now. Here, 10,000 miles from Melbourne, 10,000 miles from him. We both have to leave, you see. And maybe Ruby is right with the next thought, pushing through the vodka, jet lag and grey light of early morning. Maybe the people who appear brave are merely doing the thing they have to do. It's not a matter of courage, then to pack up and leave a life, just a lack of any other option, and the sudden realization you probably don't have anything left to lose. I may be sleeping soundly this next first morning as she makes her list and thinks her delirious thoughts. But make no mistake, though we come from different places, Ruby dreams, and I might as well be the same person when it comes to how we landed here in New York City.